Yee! Bright spot. Not sure where that came from. Oh well. Just have to live with it, I guess. Welcome back to Artifact. This marvelous solo RPG by Jack Harrison. Get in the frame there. And make sure that I'm not coming out. Welcome back to Artifact. Beep. Mute the feed there. So this is a solo RPG about being a magical item in a Dungeons and Dragons-esque sort of setting. And last week began my first playthrough, and my random selection led me down the path of the Tome. And where we found ourselves, we were a magical tome created by a sage named Mast Lutherian, who was researching tea, and in researching tea discovered various recipes for magical potions, and kept all of this knowledge secret in a tome that they merely labeled with their initial L. The tome is loyal only to its keeper. It is fickle, it must be won over, and it is paranoid. It doesn't trust easily. After being penned by Mast Lutherian and filled with potion recipes for healing potions, strength potions, speed potions, and poisons, a mysterious rogue masquerading as a young apprentice showed up to the library and managed to steal the book. Did a lot of research, and through many misadventures ended up mastering its contents and even adding some of her own. She came to serve a noble family, the Thrombes, and at one point decided to double-cross the family using magic from the tome to create a sleep potion that could be aerosolized and filled the dining hall so that everyone in the household fell asleep all at the same time, so she could steal all of their treasures and run away. She did get away, but in being chased over time by the Lord Thrombe's guards, making a daring escape, accidentally dropped the tome, and it decided to beat a hasty retreat rather than try and risk their neck to retrieve it. And that's where we left off. The tome had just been rescued by the guards of Lord Thrombe, and so we're ready to move on. So this is a very simple RPG. It's just basically it's a structure for improvised storytelling with a little bit of art thrown in. They do say to make a drawing of whichever item you're creating, because the item is your character. You play as the item, not as any of the people who possess it. And so the structure of the game is 3 acts. Each act has multiple keepers, who are the people that possess the item from time to time. And you describe the keeper, you describe how they meet, and various events that happen while the two are wandering together. And then at some point, the keeper loses the item, and then there's a period of rest, which could be as little as a day, and it could be as much as all of time, I believe. What is the longest possible rest? A decade is the longest that you can be lost early in the game. Later in the game, you can be lost for a lot longer, and then decide again. So at the end of last game, no time at all was the amount of time. There was no real rest period. The book was dropped and then immediately picked up by the Lord's guards, and taken back. And that's where we left off. That little shiny point is gonna bug me, but oh, the diffuser is falling off the light. That might have something to do with it. The problems of... I'm gonna fix it. I just don't... Maybe if I just tilt the camera down. There, that fixed it. Now my head's cut off. That's not good at all either. Ugh. Maybe if I turn off this light. No better. But it's nicer in here for me, so I'm going to keep it that way. All right. Without further ado, how does this work? So, and I'm still learning this game. As you await the next keeper to claim your item, you'll rest. When you're ready, you'll choose a new keeper. Okay. Choose a new keeper. If you've already chosen 2 keepers from this act, move on. So this will be my second keeper in Act 1. And I think, last time I had chosen my keeper with a D4, but I think that because the story took me to the family of Lord Thromby, I'm going to pick a young noble, because that is just so perfectly thematic for where we already are. So, Lord Thromby. Lord Thromby's son. So I need to describe the keeper. Thromby's son will say Nigel. Nigel Thromby. The Lord gave Nigel the book upon the guard's return because Nigel already has an affinity for magical things. And so the Lord thinks that his son should have at least the spoils of this... I can't even remember what she was called when she was in the court of Lord Thromby. Clarissa Hawley is what she was known as then. Clarissa betrayed us. Have her book, if we cannot have her head. The keeper has some questions, so answer those. Describe the landed family that they are descended from. Well, the Thrombys are lording over this entire region, mostly through conniving rather than any real sense of worth. They've been installed by doing favors for the king, and have consolidated power through deals and theft and marriage. They're typical capitalists, basically. So when our roguish protagonists stole their wealth, it was a bit of Robin Hood style justice, even though Clarissa may not have been intending to give away any of it. They are descended from a long line of middle management How were you used in the nobles' cutthroat politics? Well, being the son of Lord Thromby has its perks, of course, all powerful, that sort of thing, but also has its trouble because you are expected to follow the letter of whatever law your father lays down. So, Nigel, and no, of course, I didn't intend to have Nigel be the first name that popped into my head, but I that purple hair, um, it just resonates. Uh, Used by father. Mostly thrust into a power position, despite the fact that he'd much rather just be reading and studying arcane arts without being any good at it. Uh, so he's sort of being set up to inherit the family business of being regal assholes, and yet doesn't really want to do that. Um, Politics. Despite desire to become a great wizard. All right, so that is the keeper's questions answered. Now I must go to tables 29 or 30, victories in valor, or neglect and mischief. Choose one from one of these tables. I think neglect and mischief has to be where we're going here. Oh, look, there's a handy dandy chart of 6 items. So I think we're going to roll a d6 because I don't want to choose right now. I want the choice thrust upon me. 6. You were broken, split, or torn into 2 pieces by your keeper, intentionally or otherwise. How did this happen, and how were you made whole again? Oh my. Split into 2. Well, as stated before, this magical book, the Tome of El, still lacking a name, is very fickle and very paranoid and does not trust easily. And so, upon gifting this tome to his son, Lord Thromby said, "Go forth. You always complain that I never let you study magic. Well, go study. Become something. Become something impressive that I can use, so that we can use to further the name of our family." And with finally being given the opportunity to go study magic, Nigel goes and can't open the book. He's seen it open many times. He always watched while Clarissa was using it, whenever he was able to sneak in and watch. But no, the book won't open for him. It doesn't trust him. It doesn't like him. And it still is missing its previous owner with whom it had a rapport. And so Nigel tears the book open eventually. It takes all of his might, and the strap won't open. It won't respond to being forced with a dagger. He tears the cover a bit, trying, and he can manage to fray the cover, but it holds tight. He's able to maybe pull a couple of the notes out, but even they seem tenacious. And at last, he turns to his yes, consent is very important, uh, and this book does not grant it. And unfortunately, Nigel uses his family crest dagger to rip open the book at the spine. Right there. And it just hacks it open down the beautiful leather binding through the careful hand-stitched spine and is able to open the book. And of course, the tome does not take kindly to this. So when Nigel is able to get the book open, he finds the pages swim whenever he tries to read them. The tome is so furious and so weakened by the brazen act of violence that this young, snobbish, lordly son has committed upon it, that it uses the last of its strength and summons all of its magics to make the words on its pages twist and turn and elude Nigel's sight. Change something as you become hardened, jaded, or vindictive. You can change a trait, a detail about the physical appearance of the item, a response to an artifact question, or a detail about something in the world. Artifact questions. I think possibly a trait, or possibly just how the physical appearance of the item. I don't think that any of the traits really change. I think that just reinforces the tome's paranoia and mistrust. But I am supposed to answer an artifact question anyway, so let's look at that. On your travels, you learned something about the world that could not be found in your records. What was it? That humans are capricious, that they are selfish and destructive. And, I mean, come on, Tome, we all knew this. I sort of see this tome not only as, yes, this is 2021. It's a heroine in a young adult novel, but also kind of Frankenstein's monster. So how does the keeper lose the tome? Well, once the words are swimming, Nigel's a fickle young lord, and so he decides to, out of spite, attempt to destroy the tome. But he doesn't want to throw it on the fire. He's not entirely sure. He knows enough to know that any potion residue that might be soaked into the pages could be dangerous. And he doesn't want to bury it because that seems like a lot of work. So Nigel decides to throw the two halves of the tome into the privy. So he does. Oh, privy. And now time will pass. And I think if there's anything I know about privies, it's probably going to be a year before someone comes along to empty out this privy. The privy diggers will come. To clean it out, empty it out, get it ready for the next use. So I'm supposed to sit here in silence while I listen to this song labeled Year. Oh, I'm supposed to close my eyes too. This is the amount of time that the tome rests thinking about being abandoned. This is the amazing soundtrack to this game that is written by Christopher Michael Roberts, provided for free from the Artifact folks. I think it's for free. Anyway, it's all the time periods that are in the book that you're supposed to wait. They have exact track lengths that have that lovely sort of thing to listen to. And I think I'm going to keep to my structure from before, and when the book gets abandoned, that's where I call it a break and call it a day. So we'll find out what happens when the book gets dug up from the privy next Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern. And until then, to be continued. Thanks for coming.